For centuries, the Xelari Empire had ruled the stars, believing themselves to be the first and the greatest civilization to ever exist. Their historians wrote of their glorious expansion, their scientists boasted of their unmatched technological advancements, and their leaders proclaimed that no species had ever rivaled them. To the Xelari, they were the undisputed rulers of the galaxy. But all of that changed when a routine mining expedition on a remote, uncharted planet led to a discovery that shattered their beliefs. It began with an energy signature, faint, ancient, and unlike anything recorded before. The miners initially assumed it was a simple anomaly, the remnants of some geological activity. But as they drilled deeper, they unearthed something impossible. Beneath layers of rock and dust lay the remains of a structure, an enormous, intact ruin buried for what seemed to be millennia. The architecture was precise, elegant, and far more advanced than anything the Xelari had ever seen. Panic and curiosity spread through the expedition. If another civilization had built this, where were they now? Word of the discovery reached the highest levels of the Xelari government within hours. The ruling council, a group of cold, calculating strategists, knew that such a revelation could not be ignored. If another advanced species had once existed, it raised questions that no Xelari leader wanted to confront. How had they disappeared? And more importantly, could they still be out there? A research team was dispatched immediately, consisting of the Empire's most skilled archaeologists, xenolinguists, and military scientists. They landed on the desolate world, their ships casting long shadows over the dust-covered ruins. As they stepped onto the alien surface, an eerie silence surrounded them, as if the planet itself was waiting, watching. The structures stood tall despite the passage of time, their surfaces covered in strange symbols and markings that had resisted erosion. Every scan indicated that these ruins were not just old, they were ancient beyond comprehension, predating even the oldest known records in Xelari history. The implications were terrifying. The Empire had always believed it was the first to achieve spaceflight, the first to conquer the void. But the evidence in front of them suggested otherwise. As the researchers moved deeper into the ruins, they encountered chambers filled with unknown technology, machines that hummed with dormant energy, metallic surfaces that showed no signs of rust or decay. Some devices activated on their own as the scientists approached, sending unreadable signals into the air. The linguists worked frantically, comparing the symbols to every known language, but the results were baffling. The script was unlike anything the Xelari had encountered before, except, disturbingly, for one faint resemblance. Buried deep in the archives of the Empire were records of a long-extinct species, a primitive race that had once existed in a forgotten corner of the galaxy. They had been dismissed as insignificant, a minor species that had perished in some ancient war. That species had been known as humans, but that was impossible. Humans were nothing more than a footnote in Xelari history. How could they have built something this advanced, something that clearly predated even the rise of the Xelari themselves? Questions turned to dread as the researchers found more evidence, more undeniable proof that the builders of these ruins had not just been an advanced civilization. They had been a dominant force, ruling the stars long before the Xelari had even taken their first steps into space. And yet, for all their power, they were gone. The most chilling discovery came when they unearthed a massive hall, deep within the ruins, filled with massive slabs of stone covered in carvings. The symbols were more intricate here, telling a story that none of the Xelari could immediately understand. But as they pieced it together, a terrifying realization dawned upon them. The carvings depicted great wars fought among the stars, battles beyond imagination, fleets of colossal ships clashing against enemies that defied description. And at the center of it all, humans, not as victims, not as a minor species struggling for survival, but as rulers, conquerors, and guardians of a galaxy that now belonged to the Xelari. The last carvings were the most disturbing. They showed something vast, something monstrous approaching the human empire. something that even their mighty civilization had been unable to stop. And then, darkness. The records ended abruptly, as if history itself had been erased. There was no conclusion, no explanation, just silence. Fear spread through the HFY research team. If humanity had been powerful enough to dominate the galaxy, what had been strong enough to destroy them? And more importantly, were they truly gone? The deeper they searched, the more the weight of the discovery pressed upon them. Their empire was not the first, nor the greatest. They had not built their legacy upon the ruins of forgotten species. They had simply inherited a galaxy that had once belonged to a force beyond their comprehension. And that force had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only whispers of its existence. But something about the ruins felt too intact, too well preserved, as if waiting for something, or someone, to return. Then, without warning, one of the ancient machines activated. A deep, resonant hum filled the air, vibrations shaking the ground beneath their feet. A signal, impossibly old, was being transmitted into space, its destination unknown. The scientists scrambled to shut it down, but the technology was far beyond their understanding. In the silence that followed, the team could only stare at each other in horror. Had they just sent a message to something that should have remained undisturbed? Had they awoken something that had been asleep for longer than their own civilization had existed? The HFY had always believed they ruled the stars, that they were the undisputed masters of the galaxy. But as the echoes of the ancient signal faded into the void, one undeniable truth settled upon them. They had only been living in the shadows of something far greater. And now, that something might be coming back. The discovery of the ancient ruins had shaken the HFY empire to its core. But the true nightmare had only just begun. The research team, though terrified, could not turn away from the mystery before them. The ruins were vast, stretching deep beneath the planet's surface, as if they had been deliberately hidden from time itself. Every corridor they explored revealed more structures, more technology that defied explanation. The walls were lined with symbols, complex, layered messages that seemed to whisper secrets from a forgotten age. Though no one fully understood them yet, the meaning behind these carvings sent shivers down the spines of even the most hardened scientists. The humans had not merely lived here, they had ruled here. This had once been the heart of their civilization, and now it was a graveyard. Days turned into weeks as the HFY scientists and archaeologists worked tirelessly to unlock the secrets buried within the ruins. Every artifact, every machine they uncovered only deepened the mystery. Some devices hummed with dormant energy, their inner workings still active despite thousands, perhaps millions, of years of abandonment. Others, when touched, reacted as if recognizing the presence of an intruder. The team tread carefully, afraid of triggering something beyond their control. What disturbed them most was the sheer size of the underground structures. At first, they believed the ruins were the remains of a single city, but deeper scans revealed an uncomfortable truth. This was not a city. It was a fortress. The defensive structures, the reinforced walls, the silent weapon platforms long buried beneath dust and rock. This was not a place of peace. It was a last stand. And whatever had happened here had been violent enough to erase the rulers of the galaxy from existence. The linguists, working day and night, finally made progress with the ancient script. The symbols told a fragmented story, a record of events that had unfolded long before the HFY had even begun to rise to power. Humanity, once a thriving civilization, had discovered something in the depths of space, something they were never meant to find. The carvings depicted a growing darkness, a force so terrible that even the might of the human empire had struggled to contain it. The records spoke of desperate battles, of entire worlds sacrificed to hold the enemy back. The final inscription, found deep within what seemed to be the command chamber of the ancient fortress, chilled the researchers to their core. If you are reading this, we failed. If you hear the signal, it is too late. They are coming. The words were burned into the metal, as if someone had carved them in a final desperate act before the end. Panic began to spread among the research team. Had they just activated something? Had the signal they accidentally triggered been a call to an enemy long thought buried? The HFY scientists debated fiercely over what to do next. Some wanted to shut down the operation immediately, to erase all records and leave before they attracted attention. Others argued that this knowledge was too important to be ignored. If an ancient enemy still lurked in the void, waiting for a sign of weakness, then the Empire needed to be prepared. The discussion was cut short when an alert blared through their comm systems. Something had changed in the ruins. A section of the underground complex had begun to power up, its dormant systems coming alive for the first time in countless millennia. The team rushed toward the source of the energy spike, their footsteps echoing through the silent corridors. What they found left them speechless. A massive door, unlike any other they had encountered, now stood open. The symbols on its surface glowed with a soft blue light, pulsing as if responding to their presence. Beyond the door lay a chamber unlike anything else in the ruins. It was pristine, untouched by time. In the center stood a large, cylindrical structure, humming with energy. Surrounding it were consoles filled with data, their screens flickering as ancient systems rebooted. The researchers hesitated. This was the core of the facility, the place where the final moments of the human empire had been recorded. Slowly, cautiously, they approached the central structure. As they did, the room's lights grew brighter. Then, without warning, a holographic projection flickered to life in the air before them. A figure stood tall, clad in ancient armor, its human features clear despite the passage of time. Its eyes burned with determination, but there was something else in its gaze, something that HFY rarely saw in any species. Defiance. Even in death, even after their empire had fallen, the humans had refused to surrender. The figure spoke, and though the language was unfamiliar, the tone was unmistakable. This was a warning. The HFY's translators worked desperately, piecing together fragments of the message. The human hologram was delivering a final record, a desperate attempt to leave behind knowledge that might save those who came after. The words that followed sent chills down their spines. We fought until the last. We held the line. But it was not enough. If you have found this message, then the war is not over. They will come again. And if you are not ready, your fate will be the same as ours. The recording ended abruptly, leaving the HFY standing in stunned silence. They had believed themselves to be rulers of the stars, the pinnacle of galactic civilization. But now, they realized the truth. They had not inherited an empty galaxy. They had inherited a battlefield. The warnings carved into the walls, the symbols of desperate war, the final transmission of a lost people, it all pointed to one undeniable fact. The enemy that had destroyed humanity had never been defeated. And now, because of their curiosity, because they had activated the ruins, that enemy might know that there was new life in the galaxy. Fear gripped the team as they debated their next move. Some wanted to destroy the ruins, to bury this knowledge and hope that whatever had once hunted the humans had long since perished. Others insisted that they needed to warn the Empire, to prepare for a war that had begun before their kind had even learned to walk upright. But as they argued, something else happened, something that made the choice for them. The ancient machines, now fully awakened, began transmitting. A new signal, stronger and more focused than the one before, pulsed outward into the vast emptiness of space. It was not a distress call. It was a beacon. And somewhere, in the cold void between the stars, something answered. The research vessel, Vast Horizon, floated in the silent darkness of space, its crew unaware that they were about to uncover a truth that would change the fate of the galaxy. The ship had been dispatched to investigate a series of strange signals coming from an abandoned star system. One the records showed had never been settled by any known species. Yet the signals pulsing from its lone dead planet suggested otherwise. As the ship descended into orbit, its scanners picked up remnants of a vast, ancient structure buried beneath the surface. Whatever it was, It had been hidden for a reason. Commander Arlen, a veteran explorer, ordered the team to land and begin excavation. The moment the first layer of dust was cleared, they realized this was not just any ruin. The architecture was unlike anything in that Siluri Empire's database. It was advanced, efficient, and far older than they had expected. But the most chilling discovery was yet to come. As the crew ventured deeper into the ruins, they found massive corridors lined with machines that had long since gone silent. Walls bore strange carvings, symbols that their translation AI struggled to decipher. The deeper they went, the stronger the unsettling feeling grew, as if they were walking through the final moments of something far greater than themselves. Finally, they reached the heart of the complex, a chamber untouched by time. At its center stood a towering console, its screens dark but intact. As the team approached, the lights flickered, and the ancient machine roared back to life. The sudden activation sent a wave of static through their communication devices. Then, in the silence that followed, the machine spoke. A deep, mechanical voice filled the chamber, speaking in a language that, at first, made no sense. But as the translator worked, the meaning became clear. This is a warning. If you have found this message, then you are not alone in the galaxy. And you are not safe. The words sent a chill through the team. Who had left this message? And who was it warning them about? The screen before them flickered, displaying fragmented footage from a time long past. What they saw made their blood run cold. A battle. Gigantic warships, unlike anything in the current era, clashed in the depths of space. Massive energy weapons tore through fleets. Entire planets burned as civilizations fought against something unseen. And then, for the first time, they saw them, the enemy. Shadows moved between the stars, their ships shifting like living nightmares, adapting to every attack. They did not communicate, did not negotiate. They only destroyed. The footage cut to a final desperate stand. A lone human warship surrounded, holding back the darkness for as long as it could. The recording froze on the last image. A single phrase burned into the ship's hull. "We will not go quietly." The crew stood in stunned silence. This was not just an old war record. It was something more. A desperate attempt to leave behind the truth before it was lost forever. The machine's voice continued, more urgent now. "They will return. They always return. If you are hearing this, prepare. Fight, or you will share our fate." The message ended, and for a moment, there was nothing but the hum of ancient systems around them. Then, a soft pulse echoed through the chamber. A signal had been sent. Panic erupted among the team. Had they just activated something? Was the enemy still out there, waiting for a sign of life? They scrambled to shut the system down, but it was too late. The beacon had been triggered. Somewhere, across the cold void, something had heard them. Commander Arlen barked orders, urging the crew to retreat to the ship. As they ran through the corridors, dust and debris shook loose from the ceiling. The structure itself seemed to be waking up, ancient defenses struggling to reactivate after millennia of silence. By the time they reached the surface, their ship's sensors were already detecting movement. Something was approaching. The crew barely had time to board before the engines roared to life, launching them away from the doomed planet. But as they left orbit, they saw it. A distortion in space, a ripple in the void itself. And then, from the darkness, a shape emerged. The warning had been real. And now it was too late. The research vessel Obsidian Dawn drifted silently in the void, its crew staring at the massive structure ahead of them. It was not a natural formation. It was a station, an impossibly old, impossibly massive construct floating between two dead stars. The readings were wrong. The energy signatures suggested it had been operational long before any known civilization in the galaxy had even developed spaceflight. Captain Elias Voss stood at the viewport, gripping the railing as his heart pounded. His crew, a mix of scientists and explorers, had discovered ancient ruins before, but nothing like this. This station was not abandoned. Something inside was still active. The boarding team descended into the depths of the structure, their footsteps echoing through lifeless corridors. Dust floated in the zero-gravity environment, disturbed by their presence. Strange markings covered the walls, a language unknown to any database. It was not Xelari, not Korthian, not from any of the great empires that claimed to rule the stars. The further they went, the stronger the feeling grew. The sensation of being watched, of walking through something that had been sealed away for a reason. Then they found it. At the heart of the station lay a chamber unlike any they had ever seen. Monolithic structures lined the walls, their surfaces embedded with a language the translator struggled to decode. At the center stood a single towering console, dark but not dead. As the crew approached, it flickered to life. A voice spoke, distorted and ancient. The words were garbled at first, but then they became clear. "You were never meant to find this." A chill ran through the team. The screen before them displayed a timeline of the galaxy, stretching back further than any historical record. It showed civilizations rising and falling, their names long forgotten. Then, the screen zoomed in on a particular point in time. A war, not just any war, the First War. A battle fought between an empire long erased from history and a race no longer believed to exist: humans. The footage that played next shattered everything they knew. Humans had not been the last to reach the stars. They had been the first. The records showed them building, expanding, mastering the cosmos before any of the current galactic powers had even evolved into sentience. They had created wonders beyond imagination, ruled with knowledge and strength. But then something had happened, a war that burned across the galaxy, erasing them. The final entry showed a desperate attempt to hide their knowledge, to bury their existence so deep that no one would ever rediscover it. And it had worked. Until now. The crew stood frozen, the weight of history pressing down on them. This changed everything. The Xelari had always claimed to be the first intelligent race. The Korthians had built their empire on the belief that they had tamed the stars. The coalition of worlds had rewritten history to suit their rule. But now, the undeniable truth was before them. Humanity had been here first, and something had wiped them out. Then, the station trembled. The system, detecting intruders, began its final protocol. Warning sirens blared in a language none of them knew, but the message was clear. They were not supposed to be here. The station had kept its secrets for millennia, and now it was sealing them away again. Lights flickered as an automated defense system activated, energy pulses charging within the walls. The crew ran. As they sprinted back to their ship, Captain Voss barked orders into his communicator. The Obsidian Dawn's engines roared to life, primed for a quick escape. The boarding team barely made it inside before the station's defenses fired. Massive energy bursts tore through the void, but the ship jumped to FTL just in time. The crew sat in stunned silence as the reality of their discovery sank in. They had uncovered the greatest lie in history. But now, they had a new question. If humanity had been wiped out, then what had destroyed them? And more importantly, had it truly been defeated? The Galactic Council had gathered in the grand chambers of the Xelari Prime, their voices filled with unease. An emergency meeting had been called, and for the first time in centuries, every major power had sent their highest representatives. Something had happened, something that shook the very foundations of their understanding of the universe. The Korthian warlord sat in tense silence, his claws gripping the edge of the table. The Xelari chancellor's usually calm demeanor was gone, replaced by an expression of barely concealed fear. Even the cold, analytical minds of the Vorn Dominion showed signs of unease. The room was filled with holographic projections, all displaying the same thing. An anomaly had been detected at the edge of the galaxy. The transmissions were garbled, distorted by unknown interference. Fleets sent to investigate had simply disappeared without a trace. And then, the signal came, a message in a language none of them had spoken in eons, but one they all somehow understood. The words sent a chill through every soul present. "We are returning." The room fell into stunned silence. It could not be possible. Humanity was extinct. Their ruins had been uncovered, their history buried by time. They had been wiped out in the ancient war, erased so completely that even their name had become nothing more than a myth. And yet, the signal was real. The Galactic Council wasted no time. Fleets were mobilized, defenses strengthened. No one knew what to expect. Some believed it was a trick, an elaborate deception by an unknown force. Others feared it was something worse, a remnant of the war that had destroyed them. But the truth would arrive sooner than any of them had anticipated. On the outer rim of the galaxy, reality itself tore open. A fleet emerged, not just any fleet, a human fleet. Their ships were unlike anything in the current age. Massive, angular behemoths with dark hulls that absorbed all light, moving with the precision of predators. They did not drift like modern vessels. They cut through space as if they owned it. Their lead ship, an enormous dreadnought, bore a name. Panic erupted across the known worlds. Fleets scrambled to prepare. Governments rushed to establish communication. But humanity did not wait. They struck with a force the galaxy had never seen. Their weapons cut through shields as if they were paper. Their ships moved faster, hit harder, adapted quicker. The first battle lasted only minutes before an entire auxiliary armada was wiped from existence. The Corthian strongholds that had stood for millennia were reduced to rubble within days. The Vorn Dominion, known for their emotionless logic, made the only rational choice. They surrendered without a fight. One by one, the great empires of the galaxy fell, not because they were weak, but because they had never prepared for an enemy like this, an enemy that had already fought the greatest war in history. And won. Humanity had not just survived. They had waited. They had hidden away, watching, building, evolving. And now, they had returned, not as conquerors, not as invaders, but as rulers reclaiming what had always belonged to them. The final battle was not a battle at all. The Galactic Council, once proud and powerful, knelt before the true rulers of the stars. There was no negotiation. There was no plea for mercy. There was only acceptance. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same again.